Welcome to Insights. I'm Dick Goldberg, and our subject today, marrying right, or partnering right, the 10 vital tips to successful dating. Of all the components of happiness, research indicates that the most important is a happy marriage or partnership. With about half of marriages ending in divorce, why not invest in dating as if your happiness depends on it? Because as I just made the case, it really does. Now, whether you're just embarking on the process or you've been at it for a while and not been very successful, these following 10 ideas, I think, might increase your chances a lot of winding up in a happy relationship. Number 1, and I think this is underestimated, meet a lot of people. Now, why is that so important? Well, think about it numerically. If you look at 100 people who happen to be the age and sex that you're looking for a partner from, well, maybe, depending on how fussy you are, 10 of those 100 might be attractive enough in what you're looking for to consider a date with them. Of those 10, maybe 1 would find you attractive enough to want to have a date with you. Okay, so there's 100 people you have to sift through to find one who be interested in a first date with you and you with them based on first impressions. Then you get together. Well, what are the odds both of you will really like each other's personality and want a second date? You see, it's a lot of people you have to go through to find people that really are well suited for you. Well, an awful lot of people, maybe the majority, don't go to all that trouble. It's a lot of work. What happens? Well, we're all trapped under our own skin. We're all alone, and most of us don't want to be. At some point, we want a partner in life who can follow our life with us on a day-to-day basis. It's great to have a lot of friends. It's very important, but friends are different than a life partner who you can share the ongoing experience of your life with on a daily basis. So what can happen if you don't meet a lot of people? Well, let's say you have a date, and it's pretty pleasant. You go out to dinner with someone, you really have a pretty good time. Not great, but you like them. And a week later, you go on another date, same kind of experience. And after about 3 or 4 dates, you think, it's not great, but it's good. But maybe I shouldn't continue this. And if you have a period where you're not meeting anyone you really like, you might get a little lonesome and want company again. And you find yourself falling into a relationship that's okay, and it helps you escape your fundamental aloneness. Someone really gets to know you. And after a while, one of you might say, well, where's this going? And you might break up when it's pushed to shove like that. After a while, you miss them because they know you best of anybody right now. You get back together again, and somehow you fall into a committed relationship. I'm sure you know people that have had this experience, and they might stay together, or after 10 or 15 years, one of them might find someone who they realize is much better, and the marriage ends. So if you do meet a lot of people, you are much more likely to find a clique that is really excellent, not just okay. It's just the law of large numbers. So how do you meet a lot of people? How do you expose yourself to a big N, as they say in science? Well, I think the simplest way and makes the most sense, because you can do it 24/7 whenever in the mood, is computer dating. 2 in the morning, you can't sleep. Let's say you're feeling a little lonesome. You can go cruising on the net and look through all the possibilities, maybe do some email to get things started. And then go through the process of perhaps emailing a couple times, maybe making a call, then meeting someone for coffee. Make sure that first meeting is brief so you can see if there's any chance of this being an interesting relationship for you. Most won't be. And then move on from there. There's a lot of other possibilities, of course, besides computer dating. The old standards: have friends fix you up, join lots of groups, look at work, keep your eyes open. It's harder if you're shy. And if you're shy, ask your friends for help. Go to the computer dating for sure. But you just have to expose yourself to a lot of people. The number of people getting married from computer dating keeps rising. The last I heard it was 20%, but I'm sure that's going to keep rising and rising. Now, I know some of you listening to this might be grunting and groaning, thinking that sounds like a lot of work and a drag. And all those bad dates. Well, tip number 2. Make each date or encounter a positive adventure. Most of those encounters where you meet someone for a coffee or a drink just to see if there's any reason to go out again, you will not find your soulmate. You'll have to go through quite a few. But you might find someone who shares interests. You might find someone who could be helpful to you in your career. If not that, you find someone who might have different political views than you. Maybe you could explore those and see, why would someone have this odd view of a Republican or a Democrat when I know the truth? You can use it as an experiment in learning more about your own social skills and yourself. Go to each encounter with a sense of curiosity, and you might be surprised what you get out of it if it's not your very next life partner. Now, for women who are in search of the right guy, one word of caution. On that first date, make sure you're in a place that's public, that's safe, and be ready with your excuse of why you have to leave if you get a creepy feeling. You just don't have to stay. Next tip. Be yourself. There is no gain in the long run in putting forward your best self, a different self, your sophisticated self, you name it. Because sooner or later, they're going to find out who you are anyway. It's kind of like going to a job interview and being asked if you can do a certain skill or a certain kind of programming, and you want the job and you say yes, but then you get fired the first week when they find out you can't do it. That's no fun. And also, when you're being yourself, guess what? You're probably more likable because you're relaxed. You're not going to the pretension and airs of putting on a different person. And people can tell when you're being real. It's more attractive. Next, when you're with a date, if you don't know what to say, do what is always good. Show an interest in the other person. Listen, ask about them. Probably, if you had to think of the most important characteristic that makes people likable, it's showing an interest in others. It's being a good listener. So you don't have to work so hard at figuring out how clever and witty and charming you are and how much you know and how well you do. No, say, Barbara, tell me about you. Oh, what do you do? And ask questions and follow up. Find out about her interests, her friends. Stop showing off and worrying about the impression you're making and focus on being interested in the other person. It's easier, and it's a much more winning behavior. Next tip. Take time before being exclusive. Now, you might just adore someone and think they're the bee's knees after 5 or 6 dates. But the more you get to know someone, the more time you spend with them, the more you're likely to have some surprises. It could be you're with someone 2 months and you go out with them and a couple friends and you find they're very different around their friends or around their family. You might notice that the guy you're dating is very rude to waiters and waitresses. That might be a tell of something going on with him. There's a lot of surprises, so take your time before giving up all of the possibilities. Next, if you're really not quite sure, you really like this person, but you have a couple doubts, ask all your friends who are close enough to you what their impressions are of this new datee you have in your life. If they have negative responses, and if they're all negative and similar, you'd better pay close attention. Before you become exclusive, ask yourself this question. If you were not romantically or sexually attracted to this person, would you choose them as a best friend and just love their company? Because in the end, I hate to disillusion people who haven't been through this, but in the end, a marriage is a friendship with some romance and sex attached. If the answer is, well, I don't know if I'd pick him as a friend, but boy, I love him, you're headed for a lot of unhappiness, or you may be. Next, let's say you are exclusive. Now what? You've said, we're a number. Continue to maintain your friendships and your interests and remain fully engaged outside the relationship. It's a very frequent and an unfortunate pattern in a budding relationship, which can be so exciting and you're madly in love. You just give up everything because you want to spend all your time and all your energy with your new lover. Well, what happens is you lose yourself. After a while, the relationship becomes stale, even if this is the right person, because neither of you are bringing anything new to the relationship. There is no I and you, there's just a we. And worse than that is if it should end, you are left all of a sudden with a lot less than before you started the relationship because you haven't maintained your friendships, your interests, and there can be even more pain that might usually accompany the end of a relationship. Coming back is a lot tougher. Next, number 8. Before deciding to commit to a marriage or even moving in together, you might want to make sure that the emotional honeymoon is over and you've entered reality. There's a pattern to romantic relationships, and it usually begins with a state of kind of psychotic delusion. Falling in love, being madly in love, limerick, there's a lot of names for it. Euphoric psychosis, where you put a mask on the other person and only see their good parts, and you maybe put forth your best self. But you don't really see the other person for fully who they are in all their dimensions and with all their warts. Stage 2 is a stage of conflict and conflict resolution, where you start struggling with the fact that he likes parties and you've had enough. You want some time just quietly at home. It could be your values about money. My God, this woman wants to spend money wildly. This is no good. And you fight about values, style, and numerous things. Make sure you've experienced that stage before you make any long-term commitments, because many relationships don't make it through that stage. By the way, if you do, and it's a good relationship, and this is someone you'd pick for a best friend, you enter stage 3, companionate love. Where, as I mentioned earlier, there's still romance and sexuality, but not like in that first crazy stage and wonderful stage. You have a good friend. Be sure, this is number 9, that you talk over all your tough issues now rather than after you commit to marry. Do you want kids? How many? How do you want to raise them? How about religion? What if you're 2 different religions and you wind up realizing it's a deal breaker that the kids must be raised, one says Catholic and one says Jewish, and you fight about that? It's a deal breaker. Better to find out now. How about work versus leisure? Someone might say the next 10 years, I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can for success. It comes first. And the other says, oh, no, that's not the way I want to live. Or money. Or time alone versus time together. Or time with your friends and time with the couple. Talk all these things over, because it's likely that there's some issues that are pretty important that you're not 100% together on. And finally, take a trip together before you get married. I've seen several instances where a couple takes a trip together and they learn how the other one is under stress that sometimes comes up when your flight is delayed by 3 hours, and or you miss a bus or whatever that comes up, and you spend that kind of time together in that kind of circumstance. I mean, it's not an absolute necessity, but I think it's a terrific idea. Now, if you progress through all these steps and you're feeling good about each other, well, I think you've arrived at the end of the road and you're ready. One thought of caution. If you've been dating and it's been years now and you're doing almost all the things I suggest and you cannot find a partner, the problem might be some pattern that's intrinsic to what you're doing. You might set yourself up in a way, for example, that no one could meet your mutually exclusive goals. Example might be I knew someone who wanted a woman who's very independent and knows her own mind and is strong, but he also wanted a woman who would center her whole life around him. Things like that can lead to never-ending treadmill of dating, but not getting to the end of the goal. Well, I hope you find this helpful, and I hope you'll join us on the next edition of Insights.